Hi. So we've reached the final episode in my series on Kaiserspiel. We're nearly there. So in this final one, I just want to tell you a little bit about the signals, which I've mentioned in an earlier episode, and also just to kind of finish off with a few loose ends that I haven't had a chance to tell you about. So in one of the earlier episodes, I mentioned that during the round of bidding, it's really helpful if each side knows what their partners have got in their hands, and you might have wondered, well, how does that happen? Well, it turns out there are a series of signals which are actually allowed in the game, and each partner can signal to their opposite number which cards they've got. A few of the most important cards they've got in their hand. So this is obviously particularly valuable to signal the kind of the trumps, but also the kings, because those are the kind of most important cards in the game, and those are the ones that are going to win you your required 3 tricks to win the hand. I would advise not using signalling too openly or recklessly. Obviously, signals are much more valuable if your partner sees them, but the other side don't see them. And if your partner doesn't see it or doesn't understand it, and the other side do, then it's actually ruined your prospects for the hand, probably. So far better to either be subtle and clever about your signals, or not bother and rely upon your skillful card play. So without further ado, what are the signals that are used in Kaiserspiel? So one signal that you'll almost certainly want to make is to show that you've got the top trump, the mug, which is the banner of bells, and the allowed signal for that one is to puff out one cheek. So I guess you can try and blow it out like this, but I think that might be a little bit obvious to the opponents. So why not do it with your tongue like that or something? That seems to be quite normal. So that shows you've got the top trump, banner of bells. 5 of trumps is the next one down. That's easy. That's just a wink, assuming you can wink with either eye, I think. The under of trumps, 3rd trump, is just to stick out your tongue quickly and surreptitiously. To show that you have any of the other king beaters, just shrug one shoulder like that. If you've got a low trump, like an overbeater or an underbeater, I won't bother showing it here, but basically pretend you're writing with the finger, a little scriggle on the tabletop or whatever. If you have the 7 of trumps, silently mouth. That didn't really look like 7, but you know what I mean. Silent 7. If you have the king of flowers, wrinkle your nose. King of shields, look to the side. King of acorns, look up. And the king of bells, look down. None of those are particularly subtle. So I think the best players are incredibly gifted in these things. But I mean, this is probably in a pretty odd game. This is probably one of the things that most people used to normal card games would find the oddest. The fact that it's almost legalized cheating. However, I think it kind of makes the game fun and probably more child friendly, or at least teenager friendly perhaps. You don't have to use it, and in fact if you're bad at it, it's probably best not to. But if you're good at it, actually you can kind of start to use that in your bidding and decide whether you think you want to be bidding a Spiel 3 to raise the value of the game, etc. Okay, so that is the signalling, and now I just want to finish off with a few further bits and pieces on elements of the rules that I haven't really been able to cover up to now, just to kind of fill in a few gaps. So the first one is just to say that there is another aspect of the game which is completely normal in Switzerland, which is even going beyond the signalling, that you're actually allowed to talk during the game. So you could ask your partner to lead the suit that his king is in, for instance, or lead trumps, or save their trumps. Um, Various different things like that. Do you have a king? Do you have a king beater? There are kind of Swiss German expressions for those, which I'm not expecting anyone to learn or pronounce. But I think that, again, I think that is probably an optional part of the game. I think some people wouldn't want to do that, wouldn't want to expand the signalling out to something that explicit. But in Switzerland, it's perfectly normal. So I would say that, maybe just try it and see how it works for you. And if, again, so I think it certainly makes the game easier for younger people and people who are less used to playing card games to kind of play, because actually you can basically almost be guided as to what to play. But don't, it's entirely up to you whether you do that or not. The use of the Spiel dry, the raising the game value by 3 points. I don't think I mentioned that. That can end up into a kind of bidding auction. So one side can say Spiel dry. If the other side says yes, so they're happy to hold that bid and raise the game value by 3 points. The other side themselves, either immediately afterwards or at any point in the game, because Spiel dry can be said literally at any point in the game, up until someone's won it. They can then say Spiel dry. So say it was a 4 point base value, then the first partnership says Spiel dry and the second partnership accepts that. That raises the game value to 7. Then if the second partnership at some later juncture says Spiel dry and the first partnership accepts it, that raises the game value up to 10. Then the first partnership again can raise by a further 3 points by saying Spiel dry again, at which point the second partnership can either fold and give the game for 10 points to the first partnership, or they can say yes and raise it further. So the only constraint on this is that the one side can only raise the game value once by 3 points, and can only raise it again if the other side has also done the same. So one side can't keep raising it on their own. There has to be a kind of bidding war going on between both partnerships, if you see what I mean. Another interesting feature is if during a trick you don't think that the card you're about to play to the trick can win the trick, or you actively don't want the card you play to the trick to win the trick, for instance, because you want to get the lead in the right place for your partner to later win a trick with the 7 of trumps, for instance, or something like that, then play the card face down on the trick, and then that doesn't reveal any information to the other side about what card you may or may not have been storing up and which cards are left in your hand. And equally, it ensures that you're not going to win that trick, because it's just a dead card effectively in that trick. So that's quite an interesting feature. And then last but not least, there is one variant rule which I've discovered, which is played in some of the villages or valleys where this card is played, that relates to whether a king can win a trick when trumps are led to it. So normally, and the way that I've explained it in the earlier episodes, is that if a trump is the first card led to a trick, then only a trump can win that trick. So you don't need to follow suit, as with any other trick you play, whatever card you liked, whatever trick. But if a trump is led, the highest trump played to that trick will typically would win it in the normal rules. There's a variant rule where that if you lead a low trump, i.e. an underbeater or an overbeater, then a king can beat those. So it might go an underbeater, overbeater, king, and then that king in turn could be beaten by a king beater trump. But that's an alternative rule. I haven't tried it, but sounds quite interesting. Um, Personally, I kind of think I prefer the original rule, or the other rule that I taught earlier, which is that your king can only win if it's, you know, if it's the highest card in the suit that's led, rather than this route. But I think it's probably worth experimenting with both rules and seeing which you think makes the game most fun. Because above all, this is all about having fun, and so I wish you good luck with your Kaiserspiel playing, and above all, enjoy your cards. And if you want to learn more interesting card games, including games like Doppelkopf, and there may be others to be added shortly, please follow my YouTube channel the channel is called Doppelkopf with a small d. Okay, bye bye for now.